A disabled girl begs police to save her mom after masked men break into their apartment in the dead of night. Desperate and alone, she wheels through a thunderstorm to reach the precinct, defying her mother's last warning, "Call anyone but the police!" When Chicago's most dangerous mafia boss storms into the station demanding answers, he freezes at the sight of the girl in the wheelchair. Those eyes, that face. She's the spitting image of the woman who betrayed him and disappeared 7 years ago. He takes the girl to his fortified mansion, claiming she's his daughter, but the truth is far more twisted than anyone knows. The men who took her mother aren't just rivals, they're pawns in a deadly game orchestrated by someone who's been hunting both families for years. As bullets fly and secrets explode, the girl discovers her entire life has been built on lies. The accident that put her in this wheelchair? No accident at all. What happens when a girl raised to fear criminals becomes the heir to a criminal empire? And whose blood really runs through her veins? The mafia boss who claims her as his own, or the man who orchestrated her mother's kidnapping? Through the precinct's fluorescent glare, Sophia's wheels left wet tracks across the linoleum floor. Her dark hair clung to her face in sodden strands, water dripping steadily from her clothes to form puddles beneath her chair. The late-night skeleton crew of officers stared, their coffee cups frozen halfway to their mouths. Sophia's arms trembled from the exertion of wheeling through the storm, but she kept her chin high. Years of her mother's warnings about avoiding law enforcement echoed in her mind, warring with the image of Elena being dragged away by masked intruders. Her fingers tightened on her wheels until her knuckles turned white. "Can someone help me?" Her voice came out stronger than she expected, carrying across the quiet precinct. "My mother's been kidnapped." A female officer approached first, her badge reading Martinez. She crouched beside Sophia's wheelchair, bringing herself to eye level. "Let's get you dried off, sweetheart. I'm Officer Martinez, but you can call me Carmen." Sophia shook her head, sending droplets flying. "There's no time. They took her over an hour ago. Please." "Rodriguez, grab some towels from the gym," Martinez called over her shoulder. To Sophia, she said, "Let's move you somewhere private where you can tell us everything." The bustling precinct transformed around her presence. Officers who moments ago had been half asleep snapped to attention. Someone draped a scratchy police department blanket around her shoulders. Sophia allowed herself to be wheeled into an interview room, noting how Officer Martinez positioned her chair where she could clearly see both the door and the two-way mirror. "I'm Sophia Rossi," she began, her hands twisting in her lap. "My mother is Elena Rossi. 3 men broke into our apartment at 11:30 tonight. They were wearing masks, all in black. Professional. They knew exactly where to find us." Martinez nodded, taking notes. "Can you describe their builds? Anything distinctive about their movements or voices?" Sophia closed her eyes, forcing herself to replay the terrifying scene. 2 were tall, over 6 feet. The third was shorter but stockier. They moved like they'd done this before. Coordinated. Efficient. Her voice cracked. One of them had a tattoo peeking out from his sleeve. Some kind of bird, maybe. "Did they say anything? Give any indication of why they targeted your mother?" "No, but..." Sophia hesitated, remembering years of sudden moves, her mother's paranoid security measures, the way Elena's eyes constantly scanned for threats. "My mother's been running from something, someone. We've moved 6 times in 7 years. She homeschools me, works remotely, barely has any friends. She installed panic buttons in our apartment, taught me escape routes." Martinez exchanged glances with her partner, who had silently entered the room. "Did your mother ever mention any specific threats? Names of people she was afraid of?" Sophia shook her head, frustration building. "She never told me anything concrete, just that we had to be careful, always ready to leave at a moment's notice." She leaned forward, her wet hair falling in her face. "But she told me never to go to the police. Her last words before they took her were, 'Call anyone but the police.' What does that mean? Why wouldn't she want help?" The officers shared another loaded look. Martinez's partner stepped forward, his badge reading Detective Chen. "Sophia, we need to ask you some difficult questions," he said gently. "Has your mother ever used different names? Have you noticed her meeting with anyone secretly or handling large amounts of cash?" The questions hit Sophia like physical blows. She remembered finding a passport in her mother's drawer once, glimpsing a different name before Elena snatched it away. The locked safe in their bedroom that Elena thought she didn't know about. The way her mother sometimes disappeared for hours, returning with thick envelopes she immediately locked away. Sophia's throat felt tight. "I don't know. Maybe. She's my mom. She takes care of me, makes sure I have everything I need despite..." She gestured at her wheelchair. She's not a criminal. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. How had they afforded her medical care and specialized equipment on her mother's remote consulting salary? Why did Elena have multiple burner phones? Why did she drill Sophia on cover stories and emergency protocols? "We're going to help you find her," Martinez promised, reaching out to squeeze Sophia's cold hand. "But we need you to be completely honest with us. Anything you've noticed, no matter how small it seems, could help us understand who took her and why." Sophia nodded slowly, her mind racing through years of small oddities and inconsistencies she'd dismissed or rationalized. The mysterious deposits to their bank account, the way Elena sometimes spoke Italian in her sleep, though she claimed no Italian heritage, the gun Sophia had once found cleaned and oiled in their bathroom cabinet. "I'll tell you everything I can remember," she said finally. "But first, I need to know my mother's safe. These men were professionals. They knew exactly what they were doing. And if she was so afraid of the police finding us..." She met Martinez's eyes. "What aren't you telling me about who my mother really is?" The interview room fell silent except for the steady drip of water from Sophia's clothes and the distant rumble of thunder. Outside the precinct, Chicago's streets glistened with rain, hiding secrets in their shadows. Somewhere in the vast city, Elena Rossi, or whatever her real name might be, was in the hands of men who had been hunting her for years. And Sophia, wheelchair-bound and soaked to the bone, was her only hope for rescue. Detective Marcus Vega rubbed his tired eyes, the blue light from his computer screen burning his retinas at this ungodly hour. Empty coffee cups littered his desk, testament to the long shift that mercifully ended in less than an hour. The steady drum of rain against the precinct windows provided a monotonous soundtrack to his paperwork. A commotion at the front desk pulled his attention. Through the glass partition of his office, he watched several officers crowding around someone he couldn't quite see. Their voices carried, urgent and concerned. "Someone get a towel!" "She's soaked through. Call social services." Vega stood, stretching his cramped muscles. As the officers parted, he saw her, a teenage girl in a wheelchair, water dripping from her clothes and hair onto the linoleum floor. Something in her desperate expression made him move closer. "Please," she was saying, her teeth chattering. "My mother's been kidnapped. I need help." Officer Martinez was already taking down basic information. When she mentioned her address, Vega felt like he'd been punched in the gut. 2847 West Palmer Street, the same neighborhood where his sister Maria had died 3 years ago, caught in crossfire between rival gangs while walking home from school. "I'll take this," he said, stepping forward. Martinez looked relieved to hand over her notepad. "Detective Marcus Vega," he introduced himself, crouching to meet the girl's eye level. Up close, he could see she was fighting to maintain composure. "Let's get you somewhere warmer to talk." In the interview room, someone had draped a blanket around her shoulders and brought hot chocolate. She wrapped her hands around the cup, still shivering. "Sophia Rossi," she said before he could ask. "They took my mother around 11:30. 3 men, all in black, wearing masks. They knew exactly what they were doing." Vega noted the clinical precision of her description. Most teenagers would be hysterical. Sophia spoke like someone trained to observe details. "Your mother, Elena Rossi," he confirmed, typing the name into his database. "Did she give you any indication why someone might target her?" Sophia's hesitation was brief but noticeable. "No, but she told me not to call the police. Those were her last words before they took her." Vega's instincts, honed by 15 years on the force, prickled. Any idea why she wouldn't want police involved? Another hesitation. "No." Lieutenant Rogers appeared in the doorway, beckoning Vega outside. "Domestic dispute?" he asked quietly. "Doesn't feel like it," Vega replied. "Professional hit, 3 men, targeted approach." "Could be custody issues, angry ex-husband," Rogers suggested. "Not priority at this hour." Vega thought of his sister, of this girl from the same violent streets. "Give me till morning. Something's off here." Back at his desk, Vega pulled traffic camera footage from the area. The timestamp showed 11:37 p.m., a black SUV with no plates speeding through a red light 6 blocks from Sophia's address. He zoomed in on the passenger window, a woman's face, barely visible. Elena Rossi. The sun was rising when his database searches started raising red flags. Elena Rossi's social security number had been issued 6 years ago. Her work history, rental applications, credit score, everything only went back 7 years. Before that, Elena Rossi didn't exist. He ran her photo through facial recognition software, not expecting much. The computer pinged almost immediately, making him sit up straight. The match was to a 7-year-old surveillance photo from outside Castellano's restaurant. The woman wore different clothes, different hair, but the same face. She was arm in arm with Dante Castellano himself. Vega's throat went dry. The Castellanos weren't just any crime family, they practically owned Chicago's underworld. If Elena Rossi had connections to them... His phone buzzed. A text from his CI in the records department. "Someone's asking about your investigation. Names, addresses, everything." Across town, in a penthouse office overlooking the city, Dante Castellano received similar information. The address his police informant provided made his hand tighten on his phone until the screen cracked. 7 years. 7 years he'd been searching, and now... Back at the precinct, Sophia waited in a small break room. She'd refused social services' attempts to place her in emergency foster care, and something in her steady gaze had made them back off. Vega had arranged for her to stay at the station temporarily, though he knew it wasn't protocol. The evening shift was starting, fresh officers, replacing their tired colleagues. Sophia sat near the window, watching rain continue to fall over Chicago. Her wheelchair was finally dry, but she still felt cold to her core. The station's double doors burst open with enough force to make the glass rattle. 5 men entered, 4 in identical black suits flanking one in charcoal gray. The room fell silent. Officers' hands instinctively moved toward their weapons. Dante Castellano's presence filled the space like a storm front. His cold eyes swept the room with predatory focus, making hardened cops step back. Then his gaze found Sophia. The shock that crossed his face was like watching a mask crack. For just a moment, the feared crime boss looked utterly human. Recognition, disbelief, and something darker warred in his expression. Sophia looked back at him, confused by his reaction. She had no way of knowing she was the mirror image of her mother 7 years ago, before she disappeared from Dante's life without a trace. The entire precinct held its breath, caught in the gravity of whatever was unfolding between the crime lord and the rain-soaked teenager who'd sought their help. Outside, Chicago's endless rain continued to fall, washing away old secrets and unearthing new ones with every drop. The precinct's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as Dante Castellano approached Sophia's wheelchair. His expensive suit and commanding presence seemed to part the crowd of officers like a shark through water. Detective Vega moved quickly, positioning himself between them. "That's close enough," Vega warned, his hand resting near his holster. Dante's lip curled slightly. "Detective Marcus Vega. How's the investigation into your sister's shooting going? Such a tragedy, still unsolved after 3 years." Color drained from Vega's face. "Are you threatening me?" "Not at all. In fact, I hear there might be new evidence coming to light." Dante's voice remained conversational, but his eyes were steel. "I need a private conversation with Miss Rossi. Interview room 3 should suffice." Sophia watched the exchange, her fingers gripping her wheelchair's arms until her knuckles went white. The authority in Dante's voice made even veteran officers step back, creating a path to the interview room. "I'm not leaving her alone with you," Vega insisted. "Detective," Dante's voice dropped lower. "Think carefully about your next move. That new evidence I mentioned? It could go either way, solving your sister's case or muddying it forever. Your choice." Vega's jaw clenched. He looked at Sophia apologetically before stepping aside. Inside the interview room, Dante closed the door with deliberate slowness. Sophia backed her wheelchair into the corner, trying to maintain distance as he circled her like a predator, assessing its prey. His dark eyes cataloged every feature of her face with unsettling intensity. "You look exactly like her," he finally said, his voice rough with something Sophia couldn't identify. 7 years ago, when she was your age." "Like who?" Sophia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Your mother, though you knew her as Elena Rossi." He spat the name like it tasted bitter. "Her real name is Adriana Valenti, and she disappeared 7 years ago with $5 million in laundered money and enough evidence to destroy my organization." Sophia shook her head. "You're wrong. My mother is Elena Rossi. She works in accounting. We moved here from nowhere," Dante cut her off. "Elena Rossi didn't exist before 7 years ago, but Adriana Valenti?" He pulled out his phone, swiping through it before holding it up. She was very real. The photograph knocked the breath from Sophia's lungs. Her mother, younger, with darker hair but unmistakably her, stood wrapped in Dante's arms. They were both smiling, genuine happiness radiating from the image. Her mother's hand rested on a visibly pregnant belly. "That's not... She never..." Sophia tried to wheel herself toward the door, but Dante smoothly stepped into her path. "The men who took her weren't mine," he said, his tone shifting to businesslike efficiency. "The Volkovs must have finally tracked her down. If you want her back alive, you'll come with me." "Why would I trust you?" Sophia challenged, though her voice trembled. "Because right now, I'm her only chance. The Volkovs aren't known for their mercy, especially with traitors." He crouched down to her eye level, his expression intense. "And because despite everything she stole from me, I need to know why she ran." Sophia's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. The police couldn't help. Her mother had made that clear. If these Volkovs were as dangerous as Dante suggested. "I have conditions," she said firmly, surprising herself and judging by his raised eyebrow, Dante as well. "You're not in a position to negotiate." "I'm in exactly that position. You need me to cooperate. I need my medication, my medical supplies, and my adapted equipment. Unless you want to explain to your men why you're carrying me everywhere." Something that might have been respect flickered in Dante's eyes. "Done. Anything else?" "I want Detective Vega kept informed of any progress in finding my mother." Dante's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. "Limited updates only through me." Within 30 minutes, Sophia found herself in the back of an armored SUV with tinted windows. She watched the precinct shrink in the distance, Detective Vega's silhouette still visible on the steps. The detective's conflicted expression matched the turmoil in her own chest. Dante sat opposite her, his phone practically glued to his ear as he mobilized his organization. "I want every camera feed from the last 24 hours. Check all known Volkov properties. No, I don't care about jurisdiction." Between calls, his gaze kept returning to her face, studying her like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Sophia kept her expression neutral, while her mind cataloged escape routes, resources, potential allies. Her mother had taught her to always have a plan B through Zay. She'd never understood why until now. The Chicago skyline glittered against the night sky as they drove deeper into the heart of the city. Sophia thought about the peaceful dinner she'd been preparing just 24 hours ago, how quickly her normal life had shattered. She touched her mother's necklace, hidden, beneath her shirt, the one that contained a USB drive her mother had always insisted she wear, but never explained. 7 years of secrets were unraveling, and Sophia had a feeling she'd only seen the first thread. The rising sun painted golden streaks across Sophia's face as Dante's motorcade passed through towering iron gates. She hadn't slept, her mind racing with questions about her mother's true identity. The estate sprawled before them, manicured lawns stretching toward a limestone mansion that looked more fortress than home. 3 black SUVs formed a protective triangle around their vehicle as they approached the circular driveway. Sophia's hands tightened on her wheelchair's armrests, preparing for the awkward transfer she always dreaded with strangers. To her surprise, Dante himself opened her door. "May I assist you?" he asked, his tone careful and measured, so different from his intimidating presence at the precinct. Sophia nodded cautiously. His movements were efficient, but gentle as he helped position her chair, demonstrating an unexpected understanding of proper transfer technique. "The house has been modified," he explained as they approached the entrance. Temporary solutions for now, but functional. Portable aluminum ramps had been installed alongside the marble steps. Inside, the grand foyer's elegant furnishings had been subtly repositioned to create wider pathways. Someone had clearly consulted medical professionals about accessibility requirements. "Your wing is this way," Dante said, leading her down a corridor lined with Renaissance paintings. "Security monitors all external doors and windows, but you'll have privacy within your suite." The message was clear: luxurious accommodations, but still a cage. Her suite occupied a corner position with windows overlooking both the front drive and eastern gardens. The bedroom featured a specially adjusted bed with safety rails, while the bathroom had been fitted with grab bars and a roll-in shower. A sitting room completed the space, furnished with plush sofas and a large television. "The kitchen staff will prepare whatever you require," Dante continued. "Your medical supplies and equipment are being delivered within the hour. Is there anything else you need immediately?" Sophia shook her head, fighting to maintain her composed expression despite her churning emotions. As soon as Dante left, she pulled out her phone, quickly dialing Detective Vega's number. The call connected for 2 seconds before dropping completely. Her signal bar disappeared entirely. Heavy footsteps approached almost immediately. Dante appeared in her doorway, hand extended expectantly. "The phone, Sophia, now!" She clutched it tighter. "I need to let my friends know I'm safe." "Your friends can wait. The Volkov Bratva doesn't wait." His expression hardened. "Do you understand what that means? The Russian mob has your mother. If police get involved, they'll kill her without hesitation. Sophia's hand trembled as she surrendered her phone. The Volkovs. Why would they want her? They control Chicago's north side. We've had territorial disputes for generations. Dante pocketed her phone. This world operates by different rules than you're used to. Police involvement means death. That's not a threat. It's how things work. Throughout the day, Sophia watched from her windows as armed men patrolled the grounds. She mentally mapped camera positions, guard rotations, and blind spots, storing information she hoped she wouldn't need but couldn't ignore. Her mother had taught her to always observe, always plan, though she'd never explained why such vigilance was necessary. Now Sophia understood. As evening approached, an alarm tone echoed through the mansion. Sophia heard increased activity in the hallways, boots on marble, urgent voices speaking in Italian. Minutes later, one of Dante's men appeared at her door. "Mr. Castellano requests your presence in his office. Immediately." The office occupied the mansion's west wing, a massive space dominated by dark wood and leather. Multiple screens displayed security feeds from around the property, but Dante's attention was fixed on a laptop showing grainy footage of her mother being forced into a vehicle by men with distinctive tattoos visible on their necks and hands. "Volkov enforcers," Dante explained grimly. "Those tattoos mark their rank within the organization." A phone on his desk chimed, a specialized model Sophia recognized as a secure communication device. Dante's expression darkened as he read the message. "They're offering a trade. Your mother for the River North District, territory we've disputed for 30 years. An older man with silver hair stepped forward, speaking urgently in Italian. Sophia caught phrases about documents and evidence before Dante silenced him with a sharp gesture. "Giorgio," Dante said, "English in front of our guest." The older man, Giorgio, switched languages smoothly. "Boss, we need to consider what else she took. The USB drives, the account ledgers. Information that could destroy both families if it reached the wrong hands." Sophia's heart pounded as pieces clicked into place, the constant moving during her childhood, the security protocols that had seemed excessive, the USB drive hidden in her necklace that suddenly felt like it was burning against her skin. Her mother hadn't just stolen money. She'd taken something far more valuable, secrets that made her worth more alive than dead to both families, secrets that might be the only thing keeping her breathing right now. The office fell silent as Dante studied a detailed map of Chicago's neighborhoods on one wall, his shoulders tense with barely contained fury. Sophia watched him, wondering if he was seeing territory boundaries or remembering the smiling couple in that photograph, her mother and him, before everything went wrong. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, rousing. Sophia, from a fitful sleep, a neat stack of shopping bags lined her dresser, designer labels catching the morning light. Inside, she found clothes in exactly her size, practical yet elegant pieces clearly chosen with her wheelchair in mind. No restrictive skirts or complicated fastenings. On top sat a modified tablet with a note in precise handwriting. "Breakfast, East Terrace, 9 a.m. We have matters to discuss." "D!" Sophia's stomach growled, betraying her resolve to resist anything Dante offered. The tablet powered on to reveal a simplified interface, messaging, entertainment, and house controls, but no external internet access. Another gilded cage feature. At precisely 9 a.m., she wheeled onto the terrace where Dante sat reading financial reports. The table had been perfectly adjusted to accommodate her wheelchair, with clear paths and ample turning space. "The chef can prepare whatever you prefer," Dante said without looking up, "though I recommend the frittata." "I'm not here for breakfast recommendations," Sophia replied. "I'm here because you might help find my mother." Dante set down his papers, studying her with that unnerving intensity. "Tell me about your life with her. Every detail matters." Sophia picked at a croissant, weighing how much to reveal. "We moved constantly, never stayed anywhere longer than 8 months until Chicago. Patterns, preferred locations. Small cities, usually. Good hospitals were essential for my physical therapy. Mom homeschooled me while working remote IT jobs." Sophia paused. "She had strange rules. Never take the same route twice. Check for surveillance. Maintain go bags." "Adriana was always thorough," Dante murmured, almost to himself. His phone buzzed, and he barked rapid Italian that made a guard flinch visibly before hurrying away. Throughout the morning, Sophia noticed more wheelchair accommodations appearing. Ramps, cleared pathways, adjusted furniture. In the garage, a sleek black SUV now sported hand controls and a specialized lift. "You've modified everything," she observed when Dante showed her the vehicle. You're my daughter. Your comfort is non-negotiable. His tone left no room for argument about their relationship. Across town, Detective Vega hunched over his computer in a dimly lit apartment, surrounded by coffee cups and takeout containers. He'd called in sick to work, using the time to dig through 7-year-old records. The newspaper archive yielded gold. Castellano fiancé lost in boating accident. The article featured a photo of Adriana Valenti, unmistakably Elena Rossi, Sophia's mother. The timing aligned perfectly with Elena's appearance in Chicago, where hospital records showed a 9-year-old Sofia receiving treatment for a car accident that caused her paralysis. Vega's cop instincts screamed that nothing about this was coincidental. He called in favors, piecing together Adriana's movements before her disappearance. Credit card receipts showed regular meetings at locations, known for FBI informant handoffs. A contact in the bureau wouldn't confirm anything officially, but warned him off with significant concern. Some cases stay cold for a reason, Marcus, his contact said. There are officers you don't want looking your way on this. Back at the estate, Sophia watched the sunset from a secured balcony, her mind spinning with questions. The day had revealed so many contradictions in Dante. He'd terrorized an associate who failed to track down a lead, yet personally ensured her physical therapy equipment was properly installed. He commanded an empire through fear while treating her with unexpected gentleness. A commotion drew her attention. Below, Dante paced the garden with his phone, his controlled demeanor cracking. Even from above, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the dangerous grace of a predator barely contained. "Search again!" he snarled into the phone. "I don't care what it costs. Find her!" The crystal tumbler in his hand shattered against a stone wall, scattering shards like diamonds in the fading light. Sophia wheeled backward silently, but not before she saw something raw and wounded flash across Dante's face, an expression that complicated her image of him as merely a calculating criminal. In her room, Sophia fingered the USB drive hidden in her necklace, her mother's words echoing, "Never take this off. It's our insurance." She'd assumed it contained identity documents or emergency funds. Now she wondered what secrets it really held. Secrets worth killing for, secrets that kept her mother alive. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Dante's head of security delivered a secured laptop, explaining it was for reviewing security footage of her mother's kidnapping. As Sophia began examining the videos frame by frame, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. Her mother had prepared her for years, all those lessons in observation, memory techniques, even basic coding. Now she had to figure out why before it was too late for both of them. The endless security footage began to blur as night deepened. In a distant wing of the mansion, she could hear Dante's voice rising and falling in Italian, coordinating search efforts that spanned the city. The man who might be her father was hunting for the mother who had betrayed him, while corrupt police potentially worked against them all. Sophia had never felt more alone or more determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Dawn light filtered through bulletproof glass as Sophia jerked awake to the sound of car engines revving. Her wheelchair was already positioned by the window. She'd fallen asleep watching the compound's activities last night. Below, a convoy of black SUVs assembled, armed men checking weapons with practiced efficiency. Dante emerged from the mansion, his dark suit immaculate even at this early hour. He paused, looking up at her window. Their eyes met briefly before he slid into the lead vehicle. The convoy rolled through the gates, heading toward what she knew was the first negotiation with her mother's captors. The hours crawled by. Sophia explored every accessible inch of her wing, testing boundaries, noting security camera positions. The staff avoided eye contact, hurrying past as if she were a ghost. Only the occasional bursts of Italian through security radios broke the tense silence. Mid-afternoon, engines announced the convoy's return. Sophia wheeled to her observation post, stomach clenching at Dante's expression as he emerged. His face was carved from stone, but fury radiated from every movement as he stormed inside. Shouting echoed through the mansion. Sophia caught fragments. Doubled demands, shipping lanes, port access. A crash suggested furniture meeting walls. Finally, heavy footsteps approached her door. Dante entered, followed by a man Sophia hadn't seen before. Tall, lean, with a jagged scar running from temple to jaw that pulled his features into a permanent half-grimace. His eyes swept the room with predatory awareness before settling on her. "This is Matteo Ricci," Dante announced. "He'll be your security detail until the situation is resolved." "I don't need a babysitter," Sophia protested. "The Volkovs have made their position clear. They want more than territory now. They're after our shipping operations. Having failed to acquire them legitimately, they'll look for leverage." Dante's jaw tightened. "Your leverage." Matteo's expression suggested he shared Sophia's opinion of this assignment. When Dante left, the silence stretched uncomfortably. "So," Sophia ventured, "do you actually speak? Or just loom menacingly?" A grunt was her only response. Great. Professional silence as torture. Throughout the day, Sophia deliberately tested his patience. She wheeled into restricted areas, requiring him to redirect her. She asked pointed questions about his role in the organization. She accidentally ran over his shoes twice. By evening, his monosyllabic responses had evolved into irritated sighs. Progress. "Why such loyalty to them?" she finally demanded. "The Castellanos are just another crime family." Something dangerous flashed in Matteo's eyes. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then explain it to me," she challenged. "Help me understand why everyone here treats Dante like he's God." Matteo studied her for a long moment. "I was 12 when my parents were killed in gang crossfire, lived on the streets stealing to eat, tried to pickpocket one of Dante's men." His scarred face twisted in a bitter smile. "Dumbest thing I ever did. Or smartest." Sophia waited, sensing more to the story. "Instead of having me killed, Dante took me in, gave me education, purpose, family. Everything I have, I owe him." Matteo's voice hardened. "So yeah, loyalty, because some debts can never be repaid." Voices from Dante's study indicated another strategy meeting. Sophia wheeled toward the door, only to find Matteo blocking her path. "Move," she ordered. "Not happening. Boss's orders, you're to stay in secure areas." "That's my mother they're discussing in there. I have a right to know the plans." "Rights?" Matteo scoffed. "This isn't your world, princess. There are no rights here, only power and consequences." Anger flared hot in Sophia's chest. Without warning, she rammed her wheelchair forward, catching Matteo's foot between the wheel and frame. He swore, jumping back. Instead of retaliation, something like approval crossed his face. He stepped aside with a small bow. "You're definitely Castellano blood," he murmured as she passed. "Stubborn to the bone." Sophia paused, surprised by how the words affected her. All her life, she'd defined herself through her mother, through her disability, through what made her different. Never through bloodline or family name. She pushed through the study door, where men argued over maps and surveillance photos. Dante looked up, ready to object, but something in her expression made him pause. For the first time, Sophia took her place at the table, not as a victim or a bargaining chip, but as someone demanding to be heard. Matteo took up position behind her chair, his presence no longer feeling like a guard, but like backup. The meeting continued late into the night. Strategies proposed and discarded. Sophia absorbed every detail, noting which men deferred to whom, how alliances shifted with each suggestion. Her mind cataloged everything, building a picture of the power structure she'd been thrust into. Through it all, she felt Matteo's watchful presence. Each time she spoke, offering insight into her mother's habits or patterns. She caught that same flash of respect in his eyes. Maybe he was right. Maybe there was more Castellano in her than she'd thought. Dawn painted the Castellano estate in soft gold, but Sophia barely noticed the beauty. 3 days of captivity had settled into a strange routine. Breakfast served precisely at 8, security rotations on the hour, and Matteo's constant presence like a brooding shadow. She wheeled herself along the garden path, determination driving each push of her wheels. The morning air carried the scent of herbs and flowers, a stark contrast to the armed guards patrolling the perimeter. "Those are foxglove," Matteo said suddenly, breaking his usual silence. "Digitalis, medicinal in small doses, lethal in larger ones." Sophia stopped, turning to study him. "How do you know that?" His expression shuddered. "Experience." "What kind of experience?" she pressed, noticing how his eyes automatically cataloged each plant they passed. "That's not street knowledge. Focus on what matters," he deflected. "Like staying alive in this world you've landed in." "Then teach me," Sophia challenged, wheeling around to face him directly. "Stop treating me like fragile cargo and show me how to survive here." Matteo's scarred face tightened with reluctance. "This isn't a game." "My mother's life isn't a game," she shot back. "I need to understand this world if I'm going to help save her." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. "Fine. First lesson. Awareness. Watch the guards' patrol patterns. What do you notice?" For the next hour, Matteo drilled her on security protocols, body language indicators, and threat assessment. Sophia absorbed everything, determined to prove herself more than just a liability. "Your wheelchair isn't a weakness," he explained, demonstrating angles and leverage points. It's a weapon if you know how to use it. The frame is solid steel. Ram it right, you can break someone's knee. They were deep into a lesson about identifying concealed weapons when it happened. The stress, the intensity, the constant vigilance, it all became too much. Sophia felt the familiar aura, the warning tingles that preceded a seizure. Her hands fumbled for her medical alert bracelet as the world began to tilt. "Matteo!" she managed to gasp before the convulsions took hold. He moved with shocking efficiency, already easing her from the wheelchair before she could fall. His movements were precise, clinical, cushioning her head, turning her on her side, checking his watch to time the seizure. Through the haze of consciousness, Sophia heard him barking medical terminology into his phone, felt him checking her vital signs with practiced ease. When the seizure passed, leaving her exhausted and confused, his hands were steady as he helped her back into her chair. "You're a doctor," she whispered, pieces clicking into place. Matteo's jaw clenched. Was. Almost. In her room, as she recovered under his watchful eye, the story emerged in fragments. A brilliant student with a full scholarship to medical school, dreams of trauma surgery, a younger brother, also under Dante's protection, killed in a territorial dispute, the choice between healing and vengeance. "The scholarship board wasn't impressed when I put 3 gang members in the hospital," he said dryly. "Turns out medical schools frown on violent felonies." "The scar?" Sophia asked, gesturing to his face. "Reminder of my choice. Could have stayed clean, become a surgeon, chose revenge instead." His laugh held no humor. "Now I cause the kinds of injuries I once wanted to heal." Evening settled over the estate, painting the sky in deep purples. Sophia found Matteo on her balcony, his attention fixed on the doubled security patrols below. She wheeled out quietly, 2 coffee cups balanced carefully in her lap. "Thank you," she said simply, offering him one. "For earlier." Their fingers brushed during the exchange, sending an unexpected jolt through both of them. Sophia pulled back quickly, nearly spilling her coffee. Matteo's hand froze for a moment before withdrawing. The air between them felt different suddenly, charged with something neither was ready to name. Sophia found herself studying his profile, seeing beyond the scar to the man beneath. The healer-turned-warrior, whose gentle treatment of her seizure revealed depths he tried to hide. "Get some rest," he finally said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "Tomorrow won't be easy for any of us." As he left, Sophia remained on the balcony, watching darkness claim the garden where hours ago he'd named deadly plants with a doctor's precision. She thought about hands that could set bones or break them, about choices that shaped lives, about the complexities of the man assigned to guard her. The coffee had gone cold in her cup, but she barely noticed, too caught up in understanding how much had changed in a single day. Matteo was no longer just her watchful shadow. He was a puzzle of contradictions she found herself wanting to solve. The attic of the Castellano mansion felt like stepping into a time capsule. Dust motes danced in the narrow beams of sunlight that filtered through small windows, illuminating rows of carefully labeled boxes. Sophia wheeled herself between them, Matteo's steady presence behind her as she navigated the makeshift paths they'd created. "These were all her things?" Sophia asked, running her hand along a designer dress still wrapped in protective plastic. "Dante kept everything exactly as she left it," Matteo replied, his voice oddly gentle. 7 years, untouched." Sophia pulled open another box, finding stacks of photographs. Her mother, Adriana then, looked younger, carefree in a way Sophia had never seen. In image after image, she smiled openly at the camera, often wrapped in Dante's arms. They looked happy, in love even. "Hard to believe this was the same person," Sophia murmured, studying a photo of her mother in an evening gown, diamonds glittering at her throat as she gazed adoringly at a younger Dante. Her fingers brushed something solid beneath the stack of photos, an ornate jewelry box inlaid with mother-of-pearl. Sophia lifted it carefully, noting its substantial weight. Something about the dimensions felt off. "This feels wrong," she said, turning it over in her hands. "The outside measurements don't match the interior space." Matteo leaned closer, professional interest piqued. "False bottom?" Sophia's fingers found tiny irregularities along the seams. With careful pressure, a hidden compartment popped open, revealing several flash drives nestled in velvet. "I need my laptop," Sophia said, her heart racing. "Now." Back in her room, Sophia's fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory from countless hours in computer club guiding her through encryption barriers. Matteo watched silently, clearly impressed, despite himself. "Regular security check," he said finally, heading for the door. "Don't do anything stupid while I'm gone." The moment he left, Sophia accessed the first drive. Hundreds of files appeared: financial records, shipping manifests, photographs of meetings between known criminals. Her mother had documented everything, creating a detailed record of both Castellano and Volkov operations. With trembling hands, Sophia opened another folder. Her breath caught as she read email exchanges between her mother and FBI handlers. The truth was there in black and white. Adriana Valenti had been working against both families from the inside. A file dated 3 days before their disappearance made her blood run cold. Dante suspects. Saw him checking my phone. Need extraction plan ready. Asset safety compromised. Find what you were looking for? Sophia spun her chair to find Dante in the doorway, his expression unreadable. She lifted her chin, refusing to show fear. Did you know? She demanded. About her working with the FBI? Something flickered across his face. Old pain, barely contained rage. Yes. What happened? I discovered her betrayal 4 days before she disappeared. Dante moved into the room, his steps measured. Found her contact list, evidence she'd been informing for months. By our laws, she should have died that night. Sophia's hands gripped her armrests. But you let her go. I gave her a choice, few receive. Disappear forever or face family justice. His laugh held no humor. I didn't know about the pregnancy. Wouldn't have mattered. I loved her enough to break our most sacred rule. Hours later, Sophia found herself drawn to Dante's study. The door stood open, warm lamplight spilling into the hallway. Inside, Dante sat surrounded by her mother's files, looking older than she'd ever seen him. Why are you so determined to find her? Sophia asked quietly. After what she did? Dante looked up, his customary mask of control cracked to reveal raw emotion beneath. Because despite everything, he said, pouring amber liquid into a crystal glass, she gave me you, and in our world, Sophia, family is the only thing that truly matters. The weight of his words settled between them. Despite the lies, despite the betrayal, despite knowing she wasn't his biological daughter, he claimed her as his own. Sophia sat in silence, studying this complicated man her mother had taught her to fear. The same man who'd immediately adapted his home for her wheelchair, who looked at her with a father's pride despite their short acquaintance, who was moving heaven and earth to save the woman who'd betrayed him. All because she was Sophia's mother. The study's warm wood paneling seemed to absorb the tension as they sat together, each lost in thought. Family photographs lined the walls, generations of Castellanos staring down at them with stern dignity. Sophia wondered if someday her picture would join them, wheelchair and all, marking her place in this dangerous dynasty. On Dante's desk, the files lay open like wounds, exposing secrets long buried. Yet instead of destroying them, he was studying them, searching for any clue that might lead them to Elena, to Adriana, to the woman who had been both betrayer and beloved, whose choices had shaped all their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. The morning sun streamed through tall windows as Sophia picked at her breakfast, watching Dante review reports on his tablet. The peaceful moment shattered when his phone rang, his face darkening as he listened. How many dead? His knuckles whitened around the device. Lock down the perimeter. No one leaves until... Security teams burst into motion throughout the compound. Sophia's wheelchair rocked slightly as armed men rushed past, their urgent whispers painting a grim picture. The Volkovs had attacked a Castellano warehouse on the south side, leaving several men dead in what was clearly meant as a message. They're moving her, Sophia overheard one guard say to another. Volkov switched locations after the hit. Someone must have talked. Enough! Dante's voice cut through the chaos. His eyes found Sophia, calculation replacing rage. Get her to the downtown location, now. Matteo materialized at her side, already checking his weapons. We'll take the secure route. The convoy moved swiftly through Chicago's morning traffic, 2 SUVs ahead, Sophia and Matteo in an armored transport, 2 more vehicles behind. Sophia watched the city blur past, her fingers drumming nervously on her armrest. The attack came on a quiet stretch of road. The lead vehicles disappeared in a spray of gunfire. Their driver swerved, but the transport skidded sideways, flipping onto its side. Sophia's wheelchair restraints held as the world spun, leaving her suspended at an angle. Stay down! Matteo's voice cut through her daze. He moved with lethal grace, using the overturned vehicle as cover. The first attacker died before he cleared the tree line, Matteo's shot catching him in the throat. The second managed 3 steps before a knife seemed to materialize in his chest. The third actually reached the transport, only to have Matteo snap his neck with mechanical precision. Sophia couldn't look away. Matteo's movements were controlled, efficient, beautiful in their deadly choreography. He dispatched each threat without hesitation or waste, like a surgeon removing diseased tissue. Backup arrived minutes later, extracting them from the wreck. The downtown safe house proved to be a fortress disguised as a luxury penthouse, with bulletproof windows and reinforced doors. Once inside, Sophia finally found her voice. "You killed them," she said, watching Matteo check the security feeds. "Just like that." "Yes." He didn't turn around. "How can you be so calm about it?" Now he did face her, blood still staining his tactical shirt. "Because hesitation gets people killed. Your people killed." "They were someone's people too." "They were here to kill you." Matteo's voice held no apology. "To use you against Dante. In our world, violence isn't a choice, it's survival." He began changing his shirt, revealing a landscape of scars across his torso. Each mark told a story of lessons learned in blood and pain. Sophia wheeled closer, drawn despite herself. "These are what happen when you hesitate," he said quietly. "When you show mercy to those who won't return it." The intensity between them had been building for weeks, through lessons in survival, through shared secrets, through moments of unexpected understanding. Now it crystallized in the aftermath of violence, in the raw honesty of survival. Sophia reached up, gripping his shirt to pull him down to her level. Their lips met with desperate intensity, comfort and desire tangled together. Matteo hesitated for a heartbeat before surrendering, lifting her from the wheelchair with careful strength. Hours later, they lay together on the massive bed, the city lights painting patterns across the ceiling. Matteo's fingers traced the surgical scars on Sophia's back with gentle curiosity. "The accident that did this," he said softly. "Do you remember it?" Sophia stared into the darkness. "It wasn't an accident. We were running, Mom and me. Men were chasing us, shooting at our car. I was 9. She felt him go still beside her. "The bullet that hit me was meant for her." "Castellano men," Matteo said, his voice hollow with realization. "Yes." Sophia turned to face him. "The family you serve made me this way. The same family my mother betrayed. The same family that claims me now." She touched his face where tension had hardened his jaw. "We're all tangled in their web of violence and loyalty, aren't we?" Matteo pulled her closer, his embrace gentle despite the killer's strength in his arms. The weight of their choices pressed down on them both, his betrayal of Dante, her connection to the family that crippled her, the impossible space between duty and desire where they'd found each other. Outside, Chicago's lights glittered like stars fallen to earth, beautiful and cold as the truth they now faced. In the safety of darkness, they held each other, neither speaking the impossible questions that lay ahead. The Chicago sunrise painted golden streaks across the penthouse windows as Sophia's eyes fluttered open. The bed beside her was empty, the sheets still holding a trace of warmth. Her fingers found a folded note on the nightstand. "Checking perimeter. Stay inside. M." Sophia pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to sort through the tornado of emotions from the previous night. Every touch, every kiss felt like a betrayal of her mother's sacrifices. Elena had spent 7 years protecting her from this world, and here she was, falling for one of its most dangerous players. She transferred to her wheelchair with practiced ease, wheeling to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below, oblivious to the war being waged in its shadows. How had her life changed so dramatically in just days? The soft click of the door announced Matteo's return. His face was an expressionless mask, professional distance firmly in place. Gone was the man who had held her with such tenderness hours before. "Perimeter's clear," he reported, his voice clipped. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Matteo?" Sophia started, but the words died in her throat. What could she say? That she didn't regret it? That she understood his loyalty to Dante made anything between them impossible. He moved around the room with efficient precision, checking security feeds and sightlines. The space between them crackled with unspoken words. The secured phone on the desk chirped, breaking their strained silence. Matteo answered, his posture stiffening as he listened. "Understood. We'll move now." "What is it?" Sophia asked. They found her. Volkov compound outside the city. He was already gathering their things. "We're heading back to the main estate for planning." At the estate, Sophia insisted on being included in the extraction meeting. She might not trust anyone else, she argued. 7 years of hiding changes people. While the tactical team reviewed blueprints and security patterns, Sophia excused herself, needing space to think. She wheeled through unfamiliar corridors, finding herself in a wing that felt frozen in time. The air held a musty stillness, like a museum after hours. The door she pushed open revealed a room that made her breath catch. Everything was preserved in perfect detail, designer clothes still hanging in the closet, perfume bottles arranged on the vanity, photographs in silver frames. Her mother's room, untouched since the night she fled. Sophia moved through the space like a ghost, touching items her mother had touched 7 years ago. A silk scarf draped over a chair, a book dog-eared halfway through. On the bedside table, a small velvet box caught her eye. Inside lay an engagement ring, stunning in its elegance. Beneath it, folded carefully, was a sonogram image. Adriana Valenti, 12 weeks, was printed across the top. Sophia's throat tightened as she traced the grainy image, her own first picture, preserved alongside the ring her mother never got to wear. When she returned to the planning room, she saw Dante with new clarity. Behind his cold exterior and brutal efficiency was a man who had loved so deeply he couldn't bear to change a single item in his fiancée's room. For 7 years, he had lived alongside this shrine to his lost future, never knowing his daughter was growing up just miles away. Later that night, with the extraction plan finalized, Sophia found Matteo on her suite's balcony. He stood with military rigidity, staring out at the manicured grounds below. The space between them felt vast, despite the short distance. She wheeled closer, the gentle whir of her chair, the only sound in the night air. How could they bridge this gap? His loyalty to Dante warred with his feelings for her. Her newfound understanding of her parents' past complicated everything she thought she knew. "I found her room," Sophia finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He kept everything exactly as it was, even the ring he never got to give her." Matteo's shoulders tensed. "He searched for you both for years," he admitted quietly. "Not for revenge like everyone thought. He just wanted to find you." His hands gripped the balcony railing. When the trail went cold, something in him changed. The man who saved me, who gave me a future, he disappeared that day. Moonlight silvered the scar on his face, a permanent reminder of the violence that shaped him. Sophia realized they were all marked by choices made years ago. Her mother's desperate bid for freedom, Dante's endearing love turned to ice, Matteo's path from healer to killer, her own body forever altered by a bullet meant for someone else. The night air carried the weight of their silence. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight they were suspended in this moment of understanding, each of them trapped in the web of past decisions, present loyalties, and future uncertainties. Dawn had yet to break over Chicago when the Castellano compound burst into coordinated activity. In the command center, Sophia's wheelchair was positioned between multiple surveillance screens, her hands steady despite the tension coiling in her stomach. Matteo stood behind her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body as he monitored thermal imaging displays. "Alpha team in position!" crackled a voice through the encrypted communications. Dante's response came immediately, his tone controlled and lethal. "Proceed with infiltration. Remember, stealth over body count. We're not starting a war today." Sophia studied the building schematics, her mind racing through possible scenarios. "The sublevel shows 3 secured areas," she reported, her finger tracing the blueprint. "If I were holding someone important, I'd use the northeast corner. It's the most defensible position with the best escape route." Matteo leaned closer, his breath tickling her ear as he examined her analysis. "Send that to the ground team," he directed one of the tech operators. On the thermal imaging, red and yellow figures moved with precision through the Volkov compound, 30 miles outside Chicago's city limits. The operation unfolded like a deadly chess match. Sophia watched Dante's team neutralize guards with silent efficiency, chokeholds and tranquilizers rather than bullets, following his orders to minimize casualties. Her heart hammered against her ribs as they approached the underground level she'd identified. "Movement in the northeast corner," Matteo announced, his hand gripping the back of Sophia's chair. "Single heat signature, consistent with someone seated or restrained." "That's her position," Dante's voice confirmed moments later. "Breach in 3, 2, 1. The next few minutes passed in a blur of tactical communications and rapid movement on the thermal screens. When Dante's voice came through again, Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Package secured. Beginning extraction." The journey back to the estate felt endless. Sophia positioned herself near the mansion's entrance, Matteo a silent shadow beside her. When the vehicles finally arrived, she barely recognized her mother at first. Elena looked smaller. Somehow, her usual vibrancy dimmed by 2 weeks of captivity, but her eyes lit up when she saw Sophia. "Baby," Elena breathed, stumbling forward. "You're safe, thank God you're—" Her words cut off as she registered their surroundings, the blood draining from her face as she realized exactly where she was. The moment Elena and Dante laid eyes on each other, crackled with electric tension. 7 years of separation collapsed into a single loaded glance. Dante stood perfectly still, his expression unreadable, but his eyes never left Elena's face. The woman who had shared his bed, carried his child, and betrayed his trust stood before him again, and the weight of their shared history filled the room like smoke. Medical staff descended quickly, leading Elena to an examination room. Sophia noted the careful way Dante maintained his distance, though his gaze followed Elena's every movement. The doctor's initial report was reassuring. Malnutrition, dehydration, extensive bruising, but nothing life-threatening. When the medical team finally withdrew, Sophia wheeled into her mother's room, closing the door behind her. Elena sat perched on the edge of the bed, looking both younger and older than Sophia remembered. "No more lies," Sophia demanded, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "I need the truth. All of it." Elena's shoulders slumped. "The truth," she repeated softly, as if tasting something bitter. "The truth is, I never meant for any of this to happen. I was young, ambitious, determined to make a difference. The FBI recruited me straight out of law school, the perfect opportunity to infiltrate the Castellano organization." She twisted her hands in her lap, unable to meet Sophia's eyes. "I was already pregnant when I met Dante, my handler. We'd been involved for months. When Dante showed interest in me, my superiors saw an opportunity. The pregnancy would cement my position, make him trust me completely." Sophia felt the room tilt sideways as understanding dawned. "What are you saying?" "Dante isn't your biological father," Elena whispered. "I used you, an innocent baby, to sell my cover story. I made him love a child that wasn't his, knowing I would eventually betray him. That's the real reason we had to run. Not just because I was gathering evidence against the family, but because I knew someday he'd discover the truth about you." The sound of the door opening cut through the horrified silence that followed Elena's confession. Dante stood in the doorway, his expression transforming from shock to devastation to cold fury in the space of heartbeats. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as his control crystallized into something dangerous. "Security," he called quietly, his voice carrying despite its softness. 2 armed men appeared immediately. "Keep them both under watch, separately." As guards led Elena away, Sophia watched the connection she'd begun to build with Dante shatter like glass. Everything they'd shared over the past 2 weeks, his careful attention to her needs, their growing understanding, even his pride in recognizing himself in her determination, all of it crumbled under the weight of her mother's final deception. Sophia stared through her window, watching another black SUV roll through the compound's gates. Everything had changed since last night's revelation. The guard outside her door was a stranger, not the protective shadow of Matteo she'd grown accustomed to. Her fingers traced patterns on the cool glass as she cataloged the unusual movements below. Men in tailored suits hurried between buildings, speaking in hushed tones. The security pattern had shifted, with twice the usual number of armed personnel patrolling the perimeter. Most telling was the complete absence of Dante, who hadn't emerged from his office since ordering Elena's separation. "Miss Sophia." A soft knock accompanied the elderly housekeeper's voice. "I've brought your dinner." Rosa entered, her weathered hands steady as she arranged the covered dishes on the small table. Her eyes darted nervously to the door before she leaned closer, pretending to adjust a napkin. When she straightened, Sophia noticed the corner of paper peeking out. Once alone, Sophia unfolded the note with trembling fingers. The familiar handwriting made her heart skip. "Storage garage. Midnight." Hours crawled by like years. Sophia remembered Matteo's lessons about surveillance, how to identify blind spots, timing guard rotations, using environmental sounds to mask movement. At 11:45, she heard the shift change she'd been waiting for. The service passages were her salvation. Narrow corridors designed for staff to move invisibly through the mansion. Her wheelchair barely fit, but she'd mapped these routes during quieter days, knowing they might prove useful. The garage entrance required perfect timing between camera sweeps. Darkness greeted her inside, broken only by dim security lights. She found Matteo loading supplies into a nondescript sedan, medical kits, cash, burner phones. His shoulders tensed at her approach, but he didn't turn. "They're going to trade you," he said quietly, continuing to work. "Both of you. To the Volkovs." The words hit like physical blows. "What? Why would Dante?" "Because he's a man who's lost everything he thought he had." Matteo finally faced her, his scarred features harsh in the shadows. The daughter he loved isn't his. The woman he trusted betrayed him twice over. The Volkovs are offering a permanent alliance in exchange for you both. Elena's punishment for her crimes against both families, and you. He swallowed hard. You're the price of peace. Sophia's hands gripped her wheels until her knuckles whitened. When? Tomorrow morning. The papers are already drawn up. His fingers brushed her cheek. I won't let that happen. The next hour passed in controlled frenzy as they executed Mateo's escape plan, using maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the estate's grounds. They retrieved Elena from her secured room. Her mother initially resisted, arguing they were safer, accepting whatever punishment Dante deemed appropriate. The Volkovs will kill us slowly, Mateo countered, his voice hard. To send a message. Is that what you want for Sofia? The tunnel system was a maze of concrete and pipes, barely lit by emergency fixtures. Sofia's arms burned from propelling herself through rough passages, never meant for wheelchairs. Mateo had clearly studied the route, leading them unerringly toward freedom. They'd almost reached the vehicle's hidden position when klaxons shattered the pre-dawn silence. Sofia's heart stuttered as emergency lights flooded the compound above. They'd been discovered. Move, Mateo urged, practically lifting Sofia into the car's passenger seat while Elena slid behind the wheel. The wheelchair was abandoned. There wasn't time. Gunfire erupted as they approached the service gate. Mateo fired back, his body shielding their escape. Sofia saw the impact. The way he jerked, the dark stain spreading across his chest. Their eyes met through the window as he fell to his knees. Run, he mouthed, blood staining his lips. Don't look back. Elena floored the accelerator, crashing through the gate as bullets pinged off the reinforced body. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Sofia pressed her hand against the window, watching Mateo's form grow smaller until darkness swallowed him completely. Her mother drove with singular focus, taking random turns to shake any pursuit. Sofia's mind replayed those final moments in endless loop. The impact of bullets, the way he'd looked at her with such desperate love, his final words urging her toward a freedom that felt hollow without him. The city blurred past as they sped through empty streets, leaving behind everything she'd discovered about herself in the past weeks. The daughter of a lie, the lover of a man who'd sacrificed everything to save her, a pawn in a game whose rules she was only beginning to understand. Dawn painted the sky in shades of blood as they crossed city limits, sirens fading behind them. Elena's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, her face set in grim determination. Sofia pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching Chicago disappear into darkness, carrying with it the echo of gunfire and the memory of Mateo falling into shadow. The fluorescent lights in the FBI safe house cast harsh shadows across Sofia's face as she stared at the burner phone in her lap. 5 days of protective custody felt like an eternity, each hour marked by the steady tick of government-issued clocks and her mother's careful attempts at conversation. Detective Vega had intercepted them just outside Chicago city limits, responding to coordinates sent from an unknown number. Sofia knew it had to be Mateo, his final act of protection, ensuring they reached safety rather than running blind. The prosecution team is optimistic about your mother's testimony, Vega said, settling into the chair across from her wheelchair. His tie was loosened, dark circles under his eyes betraying endless hours of work. Both families are hemorrhaging money and manpower. The violence is escalating faster than anyone predicted. Sofia's fingers traced the wheel of her chair, remembering different hands adjusting the spokes, teaching her how to use it defensively. Any word about blood trail leads to the garage, Vega cut in gently. Then nothing. No hospitals reported gunshot victims matching his description, no body recovered. The words hung between them like smoke. Sofia nodded, throat tight. She'd barely spoken to Elena since learning the truth about her injury, that her paralysis wasn't from some random accident, but a direct result of her mother's choices. The bullet that shattered her spine had been meant for Elena, fired by Castellano soldiers during their escape. Through the window, she watched Elena cross the secured yard with 2 federal agents, headed to another debriefing session. Her mother's shoulders were squared, chin high, the same determination that had kept them hidden for 7 years, now directed toward bringing down 2 criminal empires. Sofia's attention returned to the burner phone when it buzzed softly. A text from an unknown number displayed a series of numbers that made her heart skip. During their lessons on security protocols, Mateo had taught her various codes, including a book cipher using the Count of Monte Cristo. Her hands trembled as she reached for the worn paperback Vega had retrieved from their apartment. The message slowly emerged. Still alive. Evidence of corruption. Trust no one but Vega. Hours later, after showing Vega the decoded message, they hunched over his laptop, reviewing years of case files. Patterns emerged: strategic information leaks, failed raids, money disappearing from seized assets. "Your mother's former handler," Vega muttered, rubbing his temples. "Agent Harrison, he's been playing both sides for years, feeding intel to the Volkovs while skimming from Castellano operations." Sophia's mind raced through implications. The kidnapping, probably orchestrated to force Elena's return, Vega finished. Harrison needed to silence her before she could identify him as the leak. When Elena returned from her meeting with prosecutors, Sophia confronted her with their discoveries. Her mother's face went ash white as she sank into a chair. "There's more," Elena whispered, eyes fixed on her hands. "About Dante. He knew you weren't his from the beginning." Sophia's breath caught. "What?" "Blood type incompatibility. He figured it out when you were just months old." Elena's voice cracked. "But he chose to love you anyway. Said biology didn't matter. That's why he's so angry now. Not because you're not his blood, but because I betrayed the choice he made to be your father, despite knowing the truth." Tears slid down Elena's cheeks as she continued. "He gave me a trust fund in your name before I left. I used it for your medical care all these years. He made sure it couldn't be traced. Even believing I'd betrayed him, he still provided for you." Sophia wheeled herself to the window, watching federal agents patrol the perimeter. Somewhere in Chicago, Matteo was alive, hunting evidence of corruption. Dante was waging war against enemies seen and unseen. And here she sat, protected but paralyzed in more ways than one. She heard her mother pick up Vega's secure phone, dialing a number from memory. Elena's voice was steady despite her tears. "I need to speak to Dante Castellano," she said quietly. "Tell him it's about our daughter." Sophia turned, catching the reflection of determination on her mother's face, the same expression she'd worn the night of their escape when she'd pushed Sophia into that closet with the panic button. "I'm offering myself," Elena continued into the phone. "Full confession, no deals, no witness protection, in exchange for Sophia's safety." Their eyes met across the room, mother and daughter, bound by love and lies and sacrifice. Outside, the sun began to set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Somewhere in that city, two men who loved them were fighting their own battles, and in this moment, Elena was choosing to fight one final time for the daughter they all sought to protect. Dawn painted the abandoned shipyard in shades of gray, the skeletal remains of cargo cranes looming against the lightening sky. Sophia's wheelchair rolled smoothly over the concrete as Detective Vega pushed her toward the designated meeting point. Her mother walked beside them, shoulders straight despite the fear evident in her tight expression. The sound of approaching vehicles broke the morning silence. 3 black SUVs entered the yard in formation, gravel crunching under their tires. Sophia's breath caught as Dante emerged from the central vehicle, his usual immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. Tie slightly askew, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. But it was the figure who stepped out behind him that made Sophia's heart stop. Matteo moved with careful precision, his left shoulder, wrapped in bandages, visible beneath his suit jacket, but alive. Their eyes met across the distance, and the relief in his gaze matched her own. "You brought security," Dante observed coolly, noting Vega's presence. "So did you," Elena replied, gesturing to his men, spreading out in defensive positions. "The detective's clean," Sophia interjected. "He's the one who helped us uncover the corruption." Vega stepped forward, opening his briefcase to reveal stacks of documents. "Agent Harrison has been playing both organizations for years. He's positioned himself to take control of your territories through RICO seizures once you've destroyed each other." Dante's expression hardened at the mention of Elena's former handler, Sophia's biological father. "Show me!" They gathered around a makeshift table, reviewing evidence of Harrison's elaborate scheme. Bank records showed millions skimmed from seized assets. Surveillance photos documented meetings with Volkov lieutenants. Communications revealed how he'd orchestrated Elena's kidnapping to force her back into play. "He's getting desperate," Matteo added, standing close enough that Sophia could feel his warmth. "The Volkovs are starting to question his promises." Sophia rolled forward, spreading out additional papers. "His pattern is consistent. He arranges raids to seize assets, then loses key evidence so charges don't stick. The properties get tied up in legal limbo, while he siphons profits through shell companies." She felt Dante's gaze on her as she outlined Harrison's methods, pride warring with pain in his expression, blood versus choice, the conflict evident in every glance. "He's scheduled to meet me tomorrow," Elena said quietly. to review my testimony against both families. Perfect opportunity, Vega noted. We can catch him off guard. They spent the next hour planning, Sophia refusing to be sidelined despite concerned looks from both Dante and Matteo. Her understanding of Harrison's psychological weaknesses, gathered from years of her mother's stories, proved invaluable. The following afternoon found them executing their trap. Elena entered the federal building for her scheduled meeting while others took positions. Sophia stationed herself near a service entrance, monitoring security feeds on a tablet while Matteo covered the north approach. Harrison's face showed only mild interest when Elena entered his office, until she laid out evidence of his corruption. His expression shifted from confusion to rage as he realized his scheme was exposed. "You stupid bitch!" he snarled, drawing a weapon. "You have no idea what you've done." Dante emerged from behind a partition, his own gun trained on Harrison. "Drop it." Movement in the hallway caught Sophia's attention, Harrison's backup arriving right where she'd predicted. "Matteo, 3 o'clock!" she called through their comms. Her warning allowed him to dodge the first shots, taking cover behind a filing cabinet. Gunfire erupted throughout the office as Harrison's hidden team engaged. Sophia maneuvered her chair behind a desk, using it as cover, just as Matteo had taught her. From this position, she could see Harrison taking aim at Dante, the biggest threat to his plans. Time seemed to slow as Elena lunged forward, placing herself between Dante and Harrison's gun. The shot rang out, and Elena crumpled against Dante's chest. "No!" Sophia's scream was lost in the chaos as Vega's tactical team breached the office, subduing Harrison and his men. Dante lowered Elena gently to the floor, pressing his hand against the spreading red stain on her blouse. Her breathing came in short gasps as Sophia wheeled herself to their side. "Elena!" Dante's voice cracked. "Why?" "Because," she coughed wetly. "She needs you, both of you." Sophia gripped her mother's hand as tears fell freely. "Mom, please." "Promise me." Elena's gaze locked onto Dante. "Protect our daughter. Blood doesn't matter. She's always been yours." "I promise," Dante whispered, his usual control shattered. "In all the ways that matter," Elena breathed, her eyes fluttering closed. Months passed like fragments of a dream. Spring turned to summer, and the Castellano organization began its transformation. Sophia split her time between business school classes and working with Dante to legitimize family operations. Her fresh perspective helped identify new opportunities as they shifted away from traditional criminal enterprises. Detective Vega led the internal investigation that exposed the full scope of FBI corruption, his dedication to clean law enforcement earning reluctant respect from Dante's organization. Harrison's network crumbled as evidence mounted, his carefully constructed scheme falling apart under scrutiny. https gdisdocs.google.com document D1 GGZBBL LOIGDA2 vasity BBD RT WAG WA 41 is Algar Dozu edit ESPKS sharing. The autumn wind rustled through the cemetery's maple trees, scattering crimson leaves across manicured grounds. Sophia adjusted the bouquet of white lilies, her mother's favorite, before placing them carefully against the polished granite headstone. The engraving caught the morning light. Adriana Valenti, Elena Rossi, beloved mother. Love is the strongest choice. Her fingers traced both names, each representing a different chapter of her mother's complex life. Matteo's hand settled on her shoulder, warm and steady. 6 months had transformed their relationship from forbidden attraction to something deeper, tempered by shared loss and hard-won acceptance. "She would be proud of what you've built," Matteo said softly, referring to the changes they'd implemented in the organization. Sophia smiled, thinking of the medical foundation that now bore her mother's name. Matteo had found his way back to his original calling, overseeing the foundation's operations while maintaining his position in the family. Under his direction, they'd opened 3 clinics specializing in pediatric spinal injuries and rehabilitation, serving communities that traditionally lacked access to such care. "She would have loved seeing you return to medicine," Sophia replied, adjusting her chair to face him. The morning sun highlighted the scar on his face, a reminder of their dangerous world, but his expression held a peace she'd never seen during those first tense days as her guard. Movement caught her attention. Through the cemetery's wrought iron gates, she spotted Dante's distinctive silhouette. He stood beside his Bentley, giving them space for their private moment but maintaining his protective watch. Even now, months after Elena's sacrifice, security remained tight around Sophia. She wheeled herself along the paved path toward him, Matteo falling into step beside her. The gravel crunched beneath her wheels, a sound that had become familiar in this weekly ritual. As she approached, Dante met her halfway, a small gesture that spoke volumes about how their relationship had evolved. Looking at him now, Sophia saw what others had always noticed, their striking similarity despite the lack of blood connection. They shared the same stubborn set to their jaw, the same calculating intelligence behind their eyes. More than physical traits, they mirrored each other's capacity for ruthless decision-making, tempered by unexpected moments of compassion. "The Weber Group is waiting at the office," Dante said, his businessman's tone belying the warmth in his eyes. "Their investment could help us expand the legitimate holdings significantly." Sophia nodded, already mentally reviewing the proposal she'd prepared. Her business school training, combined with intimate knowledge of the organization's operations, made her an invaluable partner in their transformation efforts. The old guard had initially resisted her influence, but her proven ability to identify profitable, legitimate ventures had earned their respect. Matteo stepped back, maintaining the professional distance required in public. His new role balanced precariously between Sophia's partner and Dante's lieutenant, a line they all navigated carefully. The foundation provided perfect cover for his medical expertise while allowing him to oversee certain family interests in the healthcare sector. "The latest clinic numbers are impressive," Sophia added, falling naturally into business discussion. "We're seeing twice the projected patient load, and 3 insurance companies have approached us about expanded coverage options." Dante's pride showed briefly through his composed exterior. In the months since Elena's death, he'd thrown himself into legitimizing the family's enterprises, partly to honor her sacrifice, partly to create a safer legacy for Sophia. The medical foundation represented their first major success, transforming a money laundering operation into genuine community service. "Harrison's trial starts next week," Dante mentioned as they moved toward the cars. The corrupt FBI agent's prosecution had become a symbol of their new direction, cooperation with legitimate law enforcement while maintaining their independence. Sophia watched the cemetery grow distant in her side mirror, her mother's grave becoming another milestone in their evolving story. Elena's final choice, sacrificing herself to protect both Sophia and Dante, had cemented the foundation of their unlikely family. Detective Vega's occasional updates kept them informed of the legal proceedings against Harrison. His evidence had exposed corruption, reaching into the highest levels of federal law enforcement, vindicating Elena's years of paranoid security measures. The procession of black vehicles moved smoothly through Chicago's morning traffic. Sophia noticed Matteo's car maintaining perfect position behind them, close enough to respond to threats, far enough to give her and Dante privacy. Their world remained dangerous, but they'd learned to balance necessity with normalcy. "The Volkoffs reached out again," Dante said quietly. "They're interested in partnering on the medical supply chain venture." Sophia considered the implications. After Elena's death, the violence between families had gradually subsided, replaced by cautious business negotiations. Their shared victimization by Harrison had created an unexpected common ground. "We should consider it, she replied. "Their distribution network would help us expand services to Eastern European communities." Dante nodded, his expression thoughtful. 6 months ago, such cooperation would have been unthinkable. But Sophia's influence had shown him alternatives to traditional rivalries, ways to maintain power while reducing bloodshed. The gleaming towers of Chicago's business district rose before them, representing their new battlefield of boardrooms and business deals. Sophia straightened her blazer, preparing for another day of walking the line between their dark past and legitimate future.